Hello everybody, looks like we're all up and running. Welcome to the Friday live painting session for the 16th of May 2025, and today we're painting really beautiful flower, I think, simple flower but really beautiful, called Snowcap Daisies, and they grow, they festoon the fields as we get further through the spring and into summer. A lot of the fields around here will get completely covered in these big daisies. They're big flowers, let me show you. Well, big compared to normal sized daisies anyway. And I really love them. They just seem to kind of encapsulate spring almost as much as daffodils do to me. So there was a few questions in the chat before we started live today about whether we're going to be doing a wipeout. Now, I'm not quite decided yet. So I'm going to have a look and decide what we're going to do. Let's say it's likely. Because there's something about the freshness of the flowers that makes me kind of want to use a slightly more breezy and loose approach, you know. But before we do anything else, let's get our trusty ChromaMagic up and we'll have a look at some of these colours. Because, you know, I'm pretty sure that you would find that there would be some in here that you would surprise you a little bit. So here's the reference photo in ChromaMagic. Link, oh, not the link, sorry, but the description of where you can find this is in the description, the video description. And it just allows you to kind of click around and have a look. And the most important thing is the values here, right? You've all seen this before, right? So something's going to be pretty obvious to you. Let's have a look at the center of this. I mean, that's like, this is the star of the show, the main flower in the painting. Let's make this sample size a little bit smaller so we can figure out the light to the shadow. So we've got a light edge here. That's pretty much like the lightest light. Lightest, brightest yellow we can get, right? A very high chroma. In the middle, it's considerably darker. We'll give it a bigger sample size so we select more of it, right? Down to a value 6, make a mental note. Value 6 in the middle. Okay. Most cadmium yellows are about a value 8, so we need to darken the yellow a little bit for the middle. And what about the shadow size? Because what we've basically got here is a disc, right? So let's have a look over in the shadow side. We're down to about a value 5, right? Look how far you can go in. But what's nice about this is I'm not getting the values of every little bit. Every little, I can't even remember what you call them. Look at that incredible spiral formation. Amazing, huh? I'll use the word nodule for now, which I know is the wrong one. But, you know, all of that detail we don't need. We need the general color, and that's one of the things that I think ChromaMagic is so good at giving you. It gives you the general idea. There's quite a big discrepancy between what ChromaMagic is saying is the nearest chip, which is this, nearest Munsell color, and the actual color is quite a bit warmer, right? But it's a middle value by the time we get there. But something that I think might surprise you, that if you were painting this, like I could imagine a lot of people painting this and making a mistake here, right? The shadow. The yellow in shadow. Look at that. It's basically a dark brown, okay? But you see it as more of a yellow here because your brain is telling you about the local color, and it's telling you that that color there, that part of that flower there is the same as this part of this flower here. So it's probably about the same color. And you would almost definitely guess that that color was lighter than it was. And you would end up with something up around here, and then you would wonder why it didn't look convincing. So what else do we need? Not very much. We need some greens, obviously. But we need to know the petals in shadow, like what color are they? Oh, they're brown. Look at this. But it's a grey brown, you know. But still, we're down to like this is saying like a value 4. That's quite a way down the value scale. It's almost the same as the background there. In fact, you can only really see these petals because of the shadow here, which is very slightly darker. In the light, value 9. A very slight hint of chroma there, just a little bit, really, really pale. In the shadow sides, this is shadow, right? Semi-shadow, semi-light. We're back to our kind of browns, you know, so basically raw umber and white is going to get you almost all the colors that you need for the petals, and you might want to put in a little bit of cad yellow, a little bit of TRO in the lights, just to give it a tiny bit of chroma. Raw umber and white will get you this color. In the shadow, raw umber and white get you that. Raw umber and white. So it's like a collection of, the whites are just like a collection of grey browns, basically. And only the petals in the light are really showing out. For the rest of the stuff, we've got, like over here in the darks, we've got quite a low value. In the shadow, we're going to be about a 5 here, yeah. And about there, over here, we're going to be about a value 4. It's mainly the values we're interested in, probably a value 5 at the front. 6, 5 to a 6 at the front. But these colors aren't really important. We just need to make sure that we keep the chroma low, right? You actually have quite a lot of room to play in the backgrounds, especially if you're not really looking for, let's say, a perfectly accurate rendition of the colors in the reference photo, which you could do if you wanted to, you know, but maybe today we'll play a little bit more in the background. At least, let's say, for me, I'm not that concerned. As long as I get the chromas right for those colors, and as long as I get the values right, not really too concerned. May bring in some color into the background. So let's get started. Yeah, you know, I'm looking at this subject and I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking, let's do a wipeout. So what I've got here is some oil. Just standard linseed oil, and I'm going to cover the panel with it. The reason I think I want to do it this way is because it's just really good for thinking about the big picture, you know. And this feels like kind of subject that's going to really benefit from that approach. Wipe the oil back a little bit. Now, what did we want? Like a value 3 over here and a value 5 over there. And then beyond that, we've got a lot of room to play, really. So I don't really have enough white out yet. So colors on the palette today. I've got lead white. Those are both lead white. I just generally like to have 2 blobs because one of them gets dirty really quickly. Cad yellow. Green gold. Transparent red oxide. And the chroma droppers, raw umber and ivory black. And welcome everybody, and thank you for coming. Janine says oxide daisies. I don't know, I think they're here we call them snowcap. Let's start doing some painting here. From Sao Paulo, wow, that's brilliant. Very cool. So I want something around a value 5 and I want something around a value 3. Let me show you the palette while I'm doing this, because I'm going to think about this as I go. I'm not going to I haven't really got a plan here. For my value 3, I'm going to go mostly raw umber and white. I've put maybe a little bit of, let's give it a little bit of chroma. I'll put a little bit of transparent red oxide in it and a little bit of green gold, just to give it a little bit of chroma. I do want to know that I'm at about the right value. Let's have a look at this. Is that about a 3? That's about a 3. That's good. So that's the right-hand side of the background. I'm going to need more of that. I don't want to be running out of painting. And also, you never know, like, I don't know how thick I'm going to put it on yet, so we'll see. I'll just get close for now. I'm not going to mix those up too well because it would be quite nice if we have some texture. In the light, I'm going to go a little bit cooler, so I know I want about a value 5. So I'll start with black and white. We'll add some little bit of raw umber. This is going to be quite a bit cooler, so I'm looking at what I've got on my palette here, and I'm thinking shadow light. This is just the background, right? Because I'm going to throw the background on. Hopefully create a bit of interest in it. Then wipe out where the flowers are going to go and then paint everything else into the background. This is my rough plan at the moment. Of course, it could go horribly wrong. We don't know what's going to happen yet. But, you know, sometimes that's too dark. Sometimes that's... So I'm checking my values here on the value scale. Munsell value scale. The link for this is in the description. You can get one of these for $10. That's all it would cost you. Paul Cantore makes them. Giancarlo, you need Italian subtitles. Oh, I don't know how to do that. Can you do that in YouTube? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe need to get a translator or several translators. Yeah, I mean, I think that's enough to be going on with. You know what I'm going to do though? I'm going to, just looking at the colours that I've got on there, I think it actually, apologies for everybody who saw the post on the community with the materials list. I'm adding a little bit of transparent red oxide. Only a tiny bit though. I'm not going to go too mad with it. Louise solves the controversy. Snowcap and oxeye are the same daisy. Cool. Thank you. This is a catalyst from Princeton 01 silicon paint shaper. I love these. You know, you want to get an area covered and you also want to give it some interest. I know I want about a value 3 over here. Some of that green, I maybe put too much green gold in, that's really showing through there, but let's see what happens. You know, and then I know as we go over to the right, we're going more towards the value 5. Well, this is almost too small. This is a squeegee. I think it's probably too hard to do this really usefully. But let's have a little bit of a play and see what we end up with. At least we've, you know, we're not stuck with a blank panel anymore, right? Now that didn't work. It's this squeegee. I've tried it a few times and I'm never too impressed with it, and I think it's because it's just too stiff. Whereas this paint shaper is nice and flexible, so you can get like more paint on it on the surface. Grey with a little bit of transparent red oxide in it. Yeah, it's one of those today. It's going this way. Quite often when I do, I find when I do paintings like this, when they start like really, really loosely like this, they're often the ones that I want to work on more, because I start seeing some interesting things in the paint and in the textures that could maybe be developed. So this is, I'm thinking about this area here, slightly changing the color. So I've got transparent red oxide, white, and raw umber, which will send it a bit more towards a slightly more reddish orange. Just to kind of, just enough. See, I'm not mixing it very well so that it creates a little bit more texture when it goes on. I mean, the colour changes are really subtle. It's not like it's going to shout at you, you know. Lighter area around here, maybe. Oh, what did I pick up? A bit of something still there. Still there. Well, never mind, it's going to be part of the painting. Don't know what it is, a little bit of grit or something. So I'm imagining the bottle here, so this is going to show the bottle like. Sometimes I think it's nice just to kind of go in with something really strong at the start. Big fat brush. That's going to really smooth things out. But there are places where I've got so much paint on here that's a little bit too thick, and I should probably... You know what? I'm really wishing I'd done this on a textured board now. This is like the exhilarating part, if you like. We were doing a lot of this on a workshop I taught not so long back, called Aesthetic Excursions, where we... well, taught is probably not quite the right word. I think it was more a case of just giving people permission to say, yeah, you can do that if you want. You can take sandpaper to your painting. You can work loads of texture into it before you start. Let's get that shadow area in. And make this nice and soft so it feels like shadow. And then I want the transition the same. I'm just looking to kind of create the atmosphere at the beginning, you know, without it being too... I'm creating the space that the flowers are going to sit within. I'm giving myself a more difficult job because I've got to wipe it out now. Marina says, can I use burnt umber and a little bit of alizarin crimson instead of transparent red oxide? Yes, sure. You probably want not so much burnt umber, though a bit, what did you say? Alizarin crimson. Yeah, sure. I feel like I've been a little bit too safe with that. And I can't really see it in there. I don't want it to shout. I don't want it to be in your face that there's... There's quinacridone rose in there. I just want a suggestion. Something unexpected. A little bit, maybe. Just trying to work the values and get some texture in and create a mood, I suppose, really. Creates. I'm just guessing at the moment where everything is. But you know, you can probably see I'm imagining the shadow, I'm imagining the bottle there. Maybe I'll put out like a reference in for the bottom of the bottle. And basically pretty much everything is going to have a certain amount of raw umber in it. I think let's try and get this in roughly the right place. That's about halfway. That's about going to be about here. I think I've probably got it about right. Water level will be about here. Got to slow down now because I need to try and make sure that I put the bottle in the right place. So I'm looking at the right side of the bottle and deciding how far over it needs to go. Think about there. We've got that kind of dark green area just about. It actually happens just about in the middle of the painting, like pretty much, I think. Slightly to the right is just when the... Oh, you know what? If I want to make those greens, I never thought about putting a good green on there. I'm gonna another one that I missed. I obviously wasn't focusing very much when I put together the materials list today. You're also going to need, well, I'm going to use a phthalo green. Because some of this green needs to, for the kind of the foliage and whatever, that needs to be definitely like a bluer green, whereas the glass is more of a yellow green. That bit there is very dark anyway. That's like the neck of the bottle. I'm just sort of making notes. So I'm looking back and I'm standing back and I'm trying to see like what's standing out to me and where does it sit. Does that make sense? Like what marks can I put in which is going to help me to kind of get a reference point of where things are going to go before I start just like wiping out willy-nilly. And let's see how little we can get away with to make, you know, maybe if I just put highlight on the glass. I've got my white is really badly contaminated with other colours now, so I'm going to have to do something about that. Bit daft, wouldn't it? starting to make a little world. This is these are really good for softening. This is a watercolor wash brush, like a, I don't know, I'd call it like a background brush or something that can really soften this, because this, I want all this to be shadow. So already I'm starting to get some variation of edges in there, like really soft to a little bit more defined. So now, like when, you know, because I've got things going on there, it's easier for me to see where, number one, where the flowers are going to go, and when I put them in, it'll be easier for me to kind of to read the values against what's already there. Just want to clarify. A little bit lighter, I think. So I'm doing these, the smaller value changes I'm kind of doing by eye. I think it wants to be, I want a bit more light here. Probably darker here. Yeah, let's wipe out where the flowers are going to go. Oh, the palette. Oh, I'm sorry. Forgot to turn it back on again. There we go. I'm sorry about that. I got immediately lost in the painting, and I forgot I forgot to turn the palette back on. Robin, the shaper, the one that I said was a bit small. It's actually really nice. It's a Princeton Catalyst 01. Is this? I'm going to try and pronounce your name. Apologies if I get it wrong. Xiaowen Liu. Greetings to you too. Which brand of palette knife would you recommend? Well, I like these ones. They're called. They are RGM Pro Grip. Normally I would say never buy anything with Pro in the name because it's almost a guarantee that it isn't. But I've had this forever and I really beat my palette knives up. I've got one like this, you know, this is also the same thing, Pro Grip RGM. Like a rubberish kind of plastic handles, but they're really nice, you know. Thomas thinks I've gone mad. Yeah, but look, you know, I've already created a world that the roses are going to be able to sit in, and it's probably a more interesting world than I would have ended up with if I'd have just painted it really carefully, right? But the thing is, if you're going to paint like this, you need some way of making sure that you put things in the right place. Like, you know, on the reference photo, if you open it in ChromaMagic, has a thing where you can put a grid in it. And I'm pretty good at imagining grids. Like I can pretty much imagine, like, you know, the middle of the painting is there, like the next horizontal grid line would be there. So I don't really need to put the grid on there because I don't need it to be exactly perfect. It's not like it's a portrait or anything. It's soft here. So I'm just playing, I'm just making atmosphere really at the moment, more than anything else, just trying to make some atmosphere, get an impression of where things are going to go. And it's, you know, it's fairly abstract at the moment. But already there's a feeling of depth in there for me anyway. I'm going to do these. A lot of the time, like especially when I'm teaching flowers, I do them, covered these particular flowers before. And I usually say, like, think of them as discs. You know, think of them as discs that are slightly indented, like in the middle, you know. And that will give you the form, because that will give you the light and shadow. Where I know a lot of people would be like, you know what, I've got to get all of the little petals in. I've got to get each petal. I've got to get all those details. No, let's not do it that way, right? Today. It's going to mean that I'm going to destroy some of my background doing it, which is a bit of a shame. But I think it's probably worth doing, because it will show you more clearly like how I conceptualize like painting these flowers. And it will help you simplify the form, which is a big thing with flowers, is being able to visualize the form simplified. And the thing is, when you, I mean, a lot of painters who like, let's say, I'm not sure how keen I am on the word, but further on in their learning journey, perhaps, let's say just more advanced painters, you know, let's use the word, will be able to paint all of those individual petals while still carrying in their mind a simplified form of the shape. Less experienced painters tend to go straight in to the detail without having a clear conception of the overall form of what they're painting. So I'm going to show you the overall form and how I would think about it. Okay, we'll do the big flower first. I'm just trying to catch up on the comments a little bit. Very busy already. I need for something to happen. What I need to do is, when I forget to turn one of the cameras on, I need one or two of you, a few of you, to have my phone number, don't I, basically? So you can just ring me, because obviously if I'm painting, I'm not looking at the comments. You can just ring me and say, Paul, palette. I'm sorry. Yeah, dots for grids work really well. So if you struggle to visualize things, you can actually get to a point where you can visualize it really well, but you can actually just measure it out and then put dots in between, and then it's really easy to take them out, you know, works really well. Don't worry about using grids, like, you know, some people get snotty about it, but it's usually what I call advanced beginners get snotty about that kind of thing, and they call it a crutch and stuff like this. It's not a crutch. Some extremely good painters used and still use grids. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about what people think. Letitia, thank you. I had to look that word up. What a beautiful word. Hermoso. I like that. Thank you. Yeah, I like it already. We need to get something in there, don't we? Robin says, would you ever consider doing some in-person classes in a workshop in England? I wouldn't rule it out, but I have done it once in Stroud. I run a workshop. My first workshop, actually pre-COVID, was in person, and I thought that's what I was going to do. And then COVID came along and I started doing this instead. Yeah, I don't know, maybe. I mean, it's very, very time consuming. Takes a lot of energy, and I'm not sure if I would be able to do anything else at the same time. furthest left, highest point. I'm just trying to mark out where that main flower is going to go. And I'm going to wipe it out. I'm going to put the colour in as if it was a disc, roughly. And then, hopefully anyway, and then refine it a little bit. But for the moment, I just want to make sure that I get everything in pretty much the right place. That's about the bottom of it there. Furthest left, about here. So it's within about that space. I'm going to do this main flower, right? Because it's these two flowers together, I suppose, really. So let's rough out where this other one below goes as well. They're the kind of the main event, and then this flower over here is kind of balancing them a bit. So that one matters too. The rest of them don't really matter much. They can just be like suggested. Maybe about there. So we've got the middle of the flower. I've put way too much paint on this for a wipeout. We'll be fine, he says with confidence. This is the shadow side. I'm going to take a bit of wiping out to get it back far enough. So this is like, I'm thinking about this all as shadow. See, when I wipe something off, I refold it, make a pointy bit, and then do a bit more. This is the light side. Goes a little bit flatter here. See, then I can't use that bit again because it's got paint on it, so get a fresh bit. It's got this one petal that kind of, and I think does belong to this flower that sticks up. So I'm using the lines of the wipeout. I'm thinking about a disc, but I'm using the lines of the wipeout, the marks that the wipeout makes, if you like, to create the direction of the petals at the same time. Not particularly fussed about if it's a perfect rendition of the actual flower that's there. We're going a little bit looser today. I do need to wipe out this middle bit quite well because I need a bright yellow there and I need it not to mix with anything. So let's really wipe that out. The wipeouts are just so good for flowers because they kind of, it's almost like they do half the work for you just with the marks. Shadow. This side is shadow. Got that way too big, but never mind. I don't want to go back into that now, so that flower is going to be bigger than it should have been. Well, let's say bigger than the reference photo. Let's not use that should word. But I'm going to have less of a feeling of this compositional downward swoop, which I did like when I set this up. We're just making some marks, trying to feel our way into the form. Wipe out this a little bit more because this is going to be the light. Yeah. Oh, look at my palette. What a mess. I'm going to save all these colours because these are all the colours I worked into the background, and I'm going to need them because I'm probably going to need to push into the side of the flowers a little bit. So let's save these colours. But I need to clean this off. bit of solvent. And it says, we're going to love the wipeout, could just do that and add yellow centers. I know, right? That's the thing about wipeouts, is like the marks are so beautiful that it's almost a shame to it is a shame sometimes to paint over them, you know. So you've got to find a way to bring in a different kind of life. What a superb question. Steve, hello Steve, he says, from your videos it's evident that Munsell and the understanding of hue, value and chroma was a game changer for you in your journey. Oh God, you're not kidding. You know, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's taken a long time and a lot of practice with it to get to a point where I feel fluent with it. Like I don't need it now, if you know what I mean. I've calibrated my visual system so that it works pretty well, and I can interpret what I see, you know, into paint. I think it definitely gets you there quicker. Anyway, but the question was, I was wondering whether any other game changes. I'd have to think about that one. Let me think about it, Steve, while I'm mixing some colour. So for the whites, I'm going to put a little bit of the light parts of the petals, this is, a little bit of cad yellow, a tiny bit, and a tiny bit of transparent red oxide, because I want just a little bit of chroma. That's too much yellow. Damn it. All right. Let's see if I can save it. Actually, I can make I'll bring raw umber into that and I'll make that a shadow color. Put too much yellow in it. I don't want them to go yellow. I want them to be like slightly, just the merest hint of slightly orangey. Raw umber. That can be like semi-shadow side. Try again. White. Tiny bit of transparent red umber. Teeny tiny bit of cad yellow. That's better. Light. And the shadow parts went down to, what did we say? It was like about a value 6, value 5, 6 amount of white. Game changers. Discovering, this is hard to, I don't know if I'd say it's a game changer because it didn't happen all in one go, but discovering the amount of freedom that you can paint with if your values are good. And if anything, I think I'm probably still discovering that. I'm still discovering how far you can push things and how much interest you can create. And then it becomes about, but as I say, as long as your drawing is pretty good and as long as your values are good, you can get away with almost anything. But the problem then becomes, to me at least, doing it in a way which isn't forced, so that it's not just applying flashy effects for their own, just for themselves, you know. I'm going to start painting into these flowers. I think, I just picked this up. Let's try with this. This is a Rosemary's brush. It's a dagger. It's an ivory dagger. Must be useful for something. So the lights, let's start keying it in. Game changers. That's such a good question that I'm going to have to think about it for a while. And if you're on my email list, Steve, maybe I'll be sending out an email about that. Other things. Yeah, I mean, discovering freeness and texture. Texture has been a big one for me, like building life in, like this, like I did here, you know. a lot of it, to be honest with you, is just building the fundamental, just building the fundamental skills, and then gradually you become freer and freer as you, paradoxically, almost counterintuitively, as you develop those skills, you know, good drawing skill, and being able to imagine value in your head, you know, like I can imagine a value scheme for a painting now. I couldn't have done that when I started. Does that make sense? I think that one went in the wrong direction, really. Let's bring it back. So this is going on pretty thick. In terms of things that made painting more understandable for me, understanding that it's all about light and shadow, and being able to intuitively divide what you see into areas of light and shadow. Funnily enough, I got that from Barg's drawings. I mean, that's a very classical thing, light and shadow, but although I wouldn't at all describe myself as a classical painter, representational, yeah. But being able to divide things into light and shadow, that was... But again, that wasn't like one thing that I could point to, and it happened on this day. But then none of it did, really. So I'm going down to like about a value 8 for the shadow side here. I'm just trying to key in values so I can make sure that everything is going to work. Obviously, this is still pretty much in the light compared to the rest of the flowers, but it's... In terms of this particular flower, it's light and shadow. So I'm imagining this as a disc with light on this side and shadow on this side, because this side is slightly recessed. It's compared to the other side, it's slightly pointing away from the light, you know. So I'm trying as much as I can to do these. I'm building petals, but I'm using them to design the light and shadow shapes. You know, so I'm thinking about like this whole area here is shadow. Is light. So that the value changes are not huge here, but you need to show them if you want these flowers to look like they belong in this space, like they live in this. Go the other way. This is actually a pretty handy brush for doing these shapes. The strokes it makes kind of gives you the petals. And then around the other side is the shadow, but we're only dropping one. We're dropping like one step in value 8. Standing back, and like every time I paint a little bit, and I've got this like nervous tick. You know, I'll do a little bit and then I'll stand back. My flowers are nothing like the ones in the reference photo in terms of shape, but I am using it for the values. All sitting there watching, like, what's he painting? What's he doing? It's because I'm more. I think I'm more interested in the strokes, in the expression of the strokes, than I am in the perfection of the rendition. Do you know what I mean? I want the strokes to describe the overall sort of the essence. Is that a pretentious word? Hopefully not. The essence of the flower. You know, I want the essence of it in the strokes. I'm not looking for a petal by petal. Let's get some yellow in it. Let's get those yellows in. Tasha, yeah, it's value, value, value. That's the mantra. So I'm going to mix 3 yellows, right? I'll risk going on to the palette again to show you these yellow mixes. And this boy's playing with the dog. So this is just my lightest. This is the for the flowers in light. This is the side of the inner disc that points straight to the light. The next one down, I'm gonna have. This is why I really like to have green gold and transparent red oxide together. I want it to come down a little bit in value. This is like for the middle. About a value 6. But if I bring that all the way down just with transparent red oxide, it's going to be too orange. And the way I keep it from going too orange is with green gold. It's not as strong a tinter, so you need to bring a little bit more in. That should be pretty nice color. For just the inside section. And then the shadow side. Same thing, just a little bit darker. You'll see these colors go on in a minute and it will make sense what I'm doing here. So I'm even though, like every little part of this painting, I'm thinking about light and shadow. There's no part of the painting where I'm just throwing something in. Or just, you know, well, it's this value there, it's that value there. At the same time, I'm thinking all the time about why is it? And is that light or is it shadow? And what is the light doing there? You know, at the end of the day, it's the values are a way to understand the light and to create the light. And if you don't have that, you don't, for representational painting, for me anyway, you don't have anything really if you don't have the light. You can forget everything else. You probably spend a lot of time looking at other people's paintings, I do, and being wowed by the effects that some people can get. But, you know, I guarantee you they only work because they've got the light in there. They've nailed the values and the values are showing the light and the shadow. Steve says, oh, you're on the email list, cool. By the way, if anybody wants to join the email list, there's a link in the description. I send out stuff, notifications of when I've got workshops and sometimes just some thoughts. I don't do that as much as I used to. I should do it more, really. Stuff I've discovered. Yeah, Rosemary's Evergreen Dagger. Very good if you're going to paint a lot of daisies. Actually, just very good for flowers in general. So Steve says, at the moment I'm working on lots of elements separately and not yet bringing them together. but Munsell has been hopeful. Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean, and it can feel like that. It can feel like that. I guess it still does to me. I will tend to focus on particular things more, you know, for a time, and then perhaps something else more for a while. I'm going to do these with, just to show you really clearly what's going on here in these flowers, I'm going to use 3 separate brushes. One for the middle value, one for the light. We'll use that one for the light because it's a bit more exact, and one for the shadow side, right? And I'll put these colours in as simply as possible. I'll put the middle in first, and let's see if it's going to be about right. I'm just thinking about, yeah, I think that's a bit dark. Let's just get it in there. So this is about a value 6, I think. So it's not just whacking in a load of yellow. That looks about right. And then this is basically a disc. So there's, the light is coming down from the right. So this side of it, you get like a crescent moon of highlight. I don't need to paint that very exactly, as long as the you know, if the colors are good and it's in the right place. And then, so now I've used my light brush and my middle value brush. On the other side, at about a value 5, we have a shadow. Ah, this brush is too big for that. You know what I'm going to get? I'm going to break out the synthetic round. This is another Rosemary's brush, the botanical set. Well, I don't really know why it's called the botanical set, because you can use them for anything. Shadow. So now I'm standing back and I'm squinting hard. What I'm interested in at the moment is not, does it look exactly like the flower? What I'm interested in, does it look like light and shadow? Is that beginning to create a form? Are the colours going to work? The one underneath looks a little bit darker and a little bit more green. This is such a different flower than the one in the photo that I've now painted there. It's like twice the size. Let's see. Does it bother me or not? I'm not sure if it does. I'm not sure it does really. Bit darker and a little bit more green. See, the change in values is really, really slight. Before I do any messing about with this flower, I'm tempted to start working into it to push it back up again and make this one smaller. Let me get a bit more. Get a bit more coverage on the light side. Yeah. Thick paint. Pure white now, because I know it's going to mix with what's already there. I just want to cover this all. Yeah, this brush actually makes Snowcap Daisy petal shapes. Pretty handy. It's got a bit of a life to it though, that I'm not sure I don't really want to take out. I want to get this other flower over here because I think this is an important one too. And the most important part of that flower to me is that it's in shadow, and I need to show that very clearly. So green gold, raw umber. And this is the yellow. This is the yellow in shadow. It lines up about with this. It's a little bit lower than, that's too low though, I think. So I've got a decision to make because I've messed up the drawing here, but I like what I've done. I've got to decide what to do with this flower over here. Maybe I haven't messed it up too bad. No, it should be a little bit lower than this one, so let's make it a little bit lower. So I'm looking at the relationships between the middle of these flowers. About there. That's the yellow. That's what the yellow looks like in shadow. And it needs petals of the right value to go with it, you know. So the ones on the far side where they're deep in shadow are down to a value 5, so they're barely going to show against the background, but we'll put them in like around here. Thick wadges of paint. You can just feel that there's an edge there. And then on the other side, we're like about, that's going to be too light. Hardly any lighter, I don't think, on the other side, because we're still, you think about it, it's still shadow. But what's interesting here is the petals curve round. So if you think about this as a curved shape, it's like you've got shadow here. So I'm not going to do the petals all the way out because this is slightly lighter, but it's shadow still. And then they get a little bit lighter as they start to curve round. And then finally they get around to almost as high a value, but I'm not going to go up to this value here. When you get they curve. That wasn't what I wanted at all. I'm trying to get that feeling of them curling round. But you can hopefully see now, though, although it looked like madness at the beginning, right? When I was throwing on all of that paint. Everything that I paint on here now, not wiping this one out because it doesn't have to go that light, but everything that I paint on here now is fitting into the environment. It's fitting into the environment of light and shadow that I made at the start. So there seems to be space behind this flower, but you know, it's only because of the background was put in first. Too light. I've lost the value now in the middle of that flower. I'm really glad I've got this brush. Somebody sent me this brush. I'm really sorry, but I can't remember who sent me it now. I should have made a note of it, really. Or I just knew, I thought I would remember. And just know that if you're watching, I really, really appreciate it. Especially right now, because it's the perfect brush for making these shapes. So with the background done, you know, really all I need to do at this point is just make sure I don't screw up the values and make reasonable marks, and I can get away with almost anything, right? When I say I can get away with anything, that sounds wrong, doesn't it? What I mean is, as long as I carefully control the marks and I carefully control the values, it's hard to go wrong, you know. The thing that would mess it up now would be trying to paint each petal, obsessing over the petals. It's more about the how can I describe it? It's about the character of the stroke. It's about the feel of the paint stroke, the feel of the mark, more than it being that exact petal. So I'm following the values that are in the reference photo. You know, these are a little bit too light, granted, but I'm interpreting the flowers very loosely, because as long as I get the values right, then it's more interesting to me to have some interesting strokes in there, and much of it I can just suggest from here. Thank you, Susan. Laurie says, is this really a wipeout because you only wiped out the two main flowers? Ooh. Ooh. More controversy in the chat today. No, I'm not wiping out. I'm just painting in. I don't know how to answer that, really. This bit was a wipeout. Let's get a little bit more light behind. You know what? I'm going to bring a little hint of blue in. Ultramarine. To be fair, I know that sometimes when I do these Friday sessions, I'm teaching a very specific thing. In fact, I'm usually doing that. To be fair, today I'm a little bit more Just painting, actually. I wasn't really planning for it to go this way, but this is how it's going. Perhaps because it's the first flowers that I've painted of the spring of this year. And I'm just remembering basically how much I love to paint flowers, just to suggest them, you know, without really shouting about them. So I guess I should apologize that this isn't so much a lesson, it's more of I'm just painting, really. But I'm trying to explain what I'm doing, at least, and hopefully that's useful. No, that colour is not there in the reference photo, but it does look nice. And if we've got it there, actually could go kind of purple there. Let's bring this. I'm enjoying this lighter patch. I probably just pushed it too far. So I started doing that mostly because I felt like I needed a correction here. And it just went that way. I suddenly thought it would be really nice if the background went lighter and a little blue there. But I still have the problem that this is not vertical, it's like it's... So I brought that in the first place to try and sort that problem out, so let's just sort it. No cast shadow for the bottle. I need to have a cast shadow from the bottle. Let's pick a soft brush for that. It's big. Ooh, what's this? Evergreen. Just a synthetic. I don't know what's different about all these brushes. This one seems to have... I'm a bit suspicious sometimes about whether it's just dyed or is it actually a different material. I don't know. It's very soft, this brush, though. I do like it very, very much. Because at the moment, my vase is floating in space. I can't put my arm there because it's going to obscure the camera. Going through a lot of brushes today. Sorry, I'm not keeping up with the comments at all today. I'm zoning out. I freely admit it. I'm into the flowers of just painting now. Just making a painting. I'm trying to explain what I'm doing, but some of it is just... Sometimes I think Sometimes the decisions come a little bit too quickly to be able to verbalize them. When you're just painting, you know, when you're sort of zoned out and you're just painting, you can't always really describe it so well. Which I guess is partly why we paint in a way, isn't it? Because we can do things express things with paint that we can't express any other way. I don't know. You know, I don't know really any other way of how to express how, you know, how fascinated I can become with the way light falls on something. You know, it's just a part of what makes us paint, I guess. So I like this. The colours of the background are closer on my painting than they are in the reference photo, and I like that more. For me, it's kind of, it holds together a little bit better. I'm liking the bottle at the moment just being extremely just suggested. Lost the cast shadow and softening it. I need to put it back in now. Take a few goes sometimes with something. I think probably it's fair to say that these days I'm becoming more and more interested in atmosphere and the feeling of something than the kind of visual accuracy of it. I think that's probably fair to say. Maybe my flowers are too small over here, actually. Maybe I've been too cautious with the size. Not by much. But the problem now is I might lose made a couple of not so nice strokes then. Yeah, see, that's not so nice. Oh, the little white tips. Got one there. So I've gone back into this flower and I'm pretty sure I've lost something. So I'm not going to go into this one, I don't think. I'm tempted to. Maybe I just need to sort a few things out now. It's changed, but something, it just suddenly, it's like there can be a point where you make a couple of marks and you suddenly think, no, actually, that didn't make it better. And if it doesn't make it better, they shouldn't really be going in there, but I just felt it needed to be bigger. think it was because I was a bit tentative with the marks, because I was worried about spoiling what I'd already done, and then inevitably, because I was tentative, the marks I made weren't as good. And this one is way too small. Come on. Yeah, there's definitely something really out in the drawing, somewhere in the flowers. I'm not really too bothered about it, but it's giving me some problems now because I have a big space to fill there. It shouldn't really be that big. And some things are just in the wrong place now, so it's like the more I refine it, the more that's going to become obvious to me and frustrating. I'm just trying to decide if there are. I'm trying to decide if it's finished actually. And maybe if it goes past this point, it becomes a different painting, and there's something that I like about it just being really simple as it is now. I think it's done. I think, you know, sometimes, I don't know, I feel like the more I work on it now, the more I'm going to lose the essence of what it is. God, that sounds really pretentious, doesn't it? I don't mean... how can I put that in better words? It's just going to, you know, I guess that's, you know, you would say maybe it would be overworked if you do too much more on it. There's something I like about the way that everything is very suggested at the moment that I think is working really nicely. And I have a feeling that if I push much further past this point, I won't be improving it. I might actually be just making it into a different painting for the sake of it. And it doesn't really need it. Just push that back a little bit. Yeah. Hard to decide sometimes whether doing more is going to make it better or if it's going to lose something. Oh, I almost swore vociferously live on YouTube then. That was just not the mark I wanted at all there. No, sir. And I put it over another stroke, so it's like it just didn't go right. Just didn't go right. Sorry, I'm not keeping up, I know, with the chat. Yeah, I just wanted to anchor this flower out here so it wasn't just floating in space. Sometimes I quite like them just to be floating off in space, you know, there's something nice about it. But I thought probably just would want to put just a little something in there. And maybe slightly, there's a couple of lighter value petals I can put in over here that I think are going to balance it a little bit. Let's bring that value right up just for a couple of them. So I can basically do, if I want to get a light value into the paint, I can do one stroke, and if I work over it, then the value immediately drops. Yeah. Phew. Was holding my breath a bit there, I think. Sorry. There's so many comments here, and I'm so behind. How did that happen? An hour and a half. It feels like about 10 minutes. Got lost a bit there, sorry. I feel like painting a series of these now. It's going to take me about another half an hour to catch up with all the comments. I just can't do it. I'm really sorry. If anybody asked any questions, I'll try to look through quickly and see if there are any questions that I missed. Thank you, Marion. You're very welcome. Thank you, Kamlesh. Yeah, this feels like, that's interesting. So Linda says, I'm learning a lot, like how messy my habits are, trying to rein in my disorganized palette and working habits. This for me is a messy palette. You know, I wasn't focused enough on what I was doing there, I don't think. Just looking at this, just wondering, should I change it now or not? Should I do? Just slightly lighter, just, you see this bottom edge of the jar, it kind of balances the flowers, and I want that edge to show. I'm just making that value just a little bit lighter. But yeah, like how organized your palette is, like it does make a big difference. You know, at the start it was pretty mad. My palette went really messy. But when I came in, then I'm thinking light and shadow. When I laid out the petals and I laid out the colours for the inside of the flowers, you know, I was pretty careful thinking about light and shadow there. Robin says, yes, a series. Linda says, would you hint at the top of the bottle on the right side? You know, I think a lot of the time I have a greater tolerance for vagueness, let's say, than a lot of people who watch me paint. And I'm fine with it, how it is, because I'm not trying to paint the thing. Do you know what I mean? If this looks all right when I'm looking at that, I'm happy. Do you know what I mean? If I get even just a vague impression of a bottle, of a vase or something being there, you know, I'm all right with that. But I get that it's a bit, you know, some people would, you know, if this was your painting, you would do that bit differently, but that's just because you're a different painter and you have a different, slightly different way of thinking about things, I suppose. You go host your dinner, Jacqueline. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Okra. Poetic, yeah. Jan says more poetic than the photo. That's what I'm looking for. I mean, I'm looking for obviously it's heavily based on the photo. The values are pretty close. The colours are pretty close. But I'm looking for something that makes me feel something. I suppose that just it's. I find this really hard to put into words, but just something. It's got like a quality, some kind of a quality to it that makes me want to look at it. That kind of something about that quietness and the sereneness and serenity is the word in it, not sereneness. Some of that in there. Bloody phone. Yeah. Don't be calling me. Oops. I meant to switch it off and I answered it instead. I have no idea who that was. That was a bit rude, wasn't it? I never have my phone in here normally, so I don't answer it. Whoever it is really wants to speak to me. Yeah, I think, how do I stop this? I'm so bad with phones. I just want to stop it ringing. I'm about to throw it out the window. I'm going to wrap up for today. I hope that this was, I mean, it was a slightly different stream today. I didn't mean for it to go this way, but I just got lost in the painting. And this is more like how I paint when I'm not teaching, to be fair. And it's a bit more difficult to explain what I'm doing. you know, the kind of yeah, that's a good word for it, Irina. The ambiguity and the that a lot of it is suggested, and that the form kind of disappears and becomes secondary to the painting and the feel of the painting. You know, that's kind of what I go for more, I think, when I'm painting for myself, and they tend to come out slightly different than when I'm teaching something. But I hope you enjoyed it anyway. I hope you enjoyed the stream today. And I will be back next Friday with another one. Oh, and don't forget, I should really say before I go, I've got a workshop starting soon. Probably most of you here already know about it, and I imagine a good number of you already signed up for it. It is called More Mastering the Magic. We won't be doing flowers. It is still life, but not flowers like this. And you know, I'm having trouble stringing sentences together at the moment because I've just gone into paint mode. So I'm just going to pop the link in the chat. If you want to have a look, you can check it out. And there's more information there. You know, it's going to be fun, a fun one. Thank you very much for coming today. I'll endeavour to have something more teaching orientated and focused next time, or maybe I'll just paint. Who knows? Thanks very much, everybody. I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.